Good afternoon. One of the questions that has stayed with me continues to be with me, even though the answer seems pretty obvious now. In the process of discarding the ego after recognition of its illusionary self. I hate to give it a self, but the Maya. As you discard this ego, maybe discard's not the right word, but as you relegate it to the dustbin, is that better? As you recognize it for what it is, a construct both of external and internal sources. It's your mind telling you who and what you are, and your mind's been influenced by stimuli from outside and consequences and results of the impact of this stimuli, and it's developed a fragile shell of an ego, as it turns out. It would like to see itself as something more substantial, and one of the allures, because it's a trickster in the old Native American concept. It's not a coyote, but it's just as wily. It lulls you, it tries to convince you that it's protecting you from the world. And it's also defining who you are to any who would listen to it. So in the process of overcoming, it is quite a struggle. But I was always interested in was personality and ego part of the same. And it turns out that the answer is a resounding no. Maybe you would say, of course not. But I wasn't sure. And as I came to understand, through this process of knowing that's always been with me, the source being within, it's the old within without connection. That personality is somehow more tangible, more of a real thing than the ego, that which we think we are. Our personality is pretty much has to accommodate our ego, but it's separate. And I understood that as I understood that Jesus, no matter how perfected of a being, as long as he was in his physical body, he definitely had a personality. As too did Buddha, all of us. And where some reflection helped me is, what is our personality? And it seems to me that our personality can't really completely or soundly be understood from ourselves, You have to talk to those closest and dearest to you, to ask them what your personality is. And you may be surprised, because it's probably not exactly a replica of what you thought it was. And this was somewhat reassuring to me, that even though we lost our sense, our false sense, our illusory, our Maya sense of self and the world and our place in the world, there was something that could persist and keep us company, and maybe turn into be a tool in our inquiry. And this bode well for me. This was comforting for me, because I've always had an interest in psychology. I studied it at a university level. I tended to lean towards Carl Jung instead of that other guy, Freud. And I didn't have much company, because when I was studying the Freudian school definitely dominated. But I kept this interest because I was interested in not only myself, but those around us, interested to help. And I wondered if psychology had some tools. And only recently, I've run into the Myers 16 personality types, and took all the tests that are out there on the internet. Did a lot of research, because this is what I do. I get a topic and I just dive into it. I want to see the details. And this is where I found out that I was an INFJ. And as I delved deeper, I listened to everything that was available. And maybe not like most people, when I open a YouTube video, I usually see it through. I think most people probably take a glance and move on. But this is a characteristic of INFJs. And maybe some of you listening are of the same type. Allegedly, the smallest group. So maybe my endeavors, my YouTube efforts, which is definitely, as I understand it, INFJ's way of touching as many people as possible. Guidance through communication. Guidance through words. So I may be talking to a small percentage of humanity, even though my interests and my efforts are directed towards all of humanity, because I see the unity. I get rid of anything that's divisive, anything that separates us from everybody else. And you might think that me being in the category, accepting myself in this small group, INFJ, INFJs, that I might be separate, I might be delving into separation. But I'm trying to experiment because any INFJs that are out listening, you hear the echoes of the universe. You listen to the sounds. You yearn for a condition of wholeness and completeness that isn't readily apparent as we look around the world around us. So I'm talking to these people, but I'm including everyone. If you don't know your type, it might be fun for you. And remember, all these things for me are for entertainment purposes only. Astrology, superficial astrology, sun sign, the kind we read in the newspaper, is of very little use. When I grew up, the newspaper used to have a little disclaimer to placate the Christian community. This is for entertainment purposes only. And essentially, that's all it is. Sweeping generalities that throw enough crap on the wall and some will stick. But science, in the early history of science, astrology was part accepted as a science. And when you get in it more deeply, when you start considering that we're not just one sign, but there's 12 different. So it's the combination, it's the synthesis. But what I appreciate is it's a system. And I love systems. I love to be systematic. My pursuit has been systematic through rigorous examination and elimination of what is not so, leaving what is so, not in the realms of intellectual pursuit, but assigning it where it belongs, to the heart. My mind helps me to eliminate what's not so, and the leftovers are sent directly to my heart to sit, to see if they gel, see if there's a cogency, if there's an inherent wholeness, and it will sit in the heart until it starts coming out through my pores, available for anyone who's sensitive enough or cares enough to experience this. And to a certain extent, we all do this to a greater or lesser degree. And we aim to do it more and more. So, my concern has always been the other. My direction is to share and help through my travails, through my efforts at understanding, to my 10,000 plus hours of rigorous self-examination, through meditation, through dreaming, through being in nature, through exercise. One of the things that makes me smile about this type is that where, at least I am, I can try to speak to others, but I don't claim to speak for others. But at first, when we look around the world, we're disappointed that things just don't seem to be going too well, knowing somewhere at a much deeper level that it could go much better with only some simple and herein lies the rub, because as many of you know, the simple is not always the easy. In fact, most times not. But it's only in 2020 hindsight, looking back, that you saw, wow, that was simple. That was simple. Why did it take so long, so many hours to get there? But I've always had this all or nothing approach to life. If I can't give it my all, I let it go. If I can't give a relationship my all, I let it go. Many people have suggested that I might have much to gain from the middle way, Buddha's middle way. But if you look closely at Buddha's life, there was nothing in the middle about him or his search. He was all out, all in, or all out. So I've talked about the middle way because I've come to see the middle way as anything but compromise. My understanding of Buddha is he was one never to compromise. So how could the middle way fit in as some kind of sense of weighing, some capitulation, some surrender to the ideas of others? There's just not any time for this nonsense, at least in my life. I refuse to do anything half-assed. And I refuse to entertain anything that I suspect comes from a half-assed attitude, half-assed effort. We're perfectionists, after all. And the source, the drive of a perfectionist, my kind of perfectionist, my experience of perfection, is that innately I know that the world is a the world is perfect. The real world is perfect. I was going to say perfectly wonderful. And that's ignoring all the times when it's perfectly awful. And it can be both. And it can be neither. nor. I talked earlier about, is life fair? Big question. There's those metaphysical questions that INFJs like so much. The big question, is life fair? And these kind of questions took me to understanding the nature of dualities, the illusion of dualities, the recognition that life is neither unfair nor fair. It just is. It's true, for me, it was through the study, the reflection, the meditation on apparent dualities, and to start to see that each was within the other, maybe as a seed, and the yin-yang. I need to get a graphic so I can hold that up, because yin-yang, the positive and the negative, the masculine and the feminine, the way it unites with two half circles and a dot of the opposite within, the seed of the other. So to see these metaphysical questions as a continuum, to be able to entertain opposites at the same time, apparent opposites, false opposites, ordained free will is a perfect one. Nature or nurture. Nature, again, yes to nature. Yes to nurture. I can 100% accept the concept of nurture and the role it plays and the natural order of things. I completely accept. They're not mutually exclusive. They are found within each other. And being able to entertain two diametrically opposed, two supposedly complete opposites, to be able to entertain them at the same time and say with this equal acceptance and surety that they both are so. This, or at least for me, led into the realms of understanding non-duality, the true nature of things. But somehow, between accepting and knowing the truth in Maya and illusion, we still are left with the task of maintaining this physical form. And personality is the key. Personality's role makes it possible to continue to do what needs to be done, even after you've had an abiding, a permanent spiritual awakening. In contrast, if not for the personality, allowing you to remain in your body, you would spiral up into that realms of bliss, into the realms of living in a constant state of clarity. For me, both those states are just too difficult to maintain and not leave my body. When I touch on bliss, bouts of bliss, I call it, bouts of clarity, I appreciate it, and part of what I appreciate is they won't be long-lasting. My experience of these two things will be brief, making them all the more precious. Whereas a state that I've been able to maintain continuously while doing the things that I need to do as a human doing to take care of the human being within. And this has been equanimity. My real goal, if I ever had one, mistaking that it was clarity because I was so unclear. I could see so many dimensions of every single problem. I could understand at a glance, just at a glance, what was going on with those around me. And even this wasn't limited by geography. I could feel. If I concentrate on someone that I know, it doesn't take me long to find them. This is just an inherent skill that I have. It was never learned. It was always with me, and I'm a little reluctant to share, but I've grown to be more secure in saying things that are in the realms of the unknowable. And that's particularly easy for me when I realize that almost everything is within the realms of the unknowable. If I had to put a number on it, if I had to quantify, I would say 98%, giving us the benefit of the doubt that 2% is normal. And I'd like to add that 2% of what's true, knowing 2% of the truth, is a huge undertaking, a huge accomplishment. And there has to be some system to file, to handle, to store, to make available when you need it. There has to be some systematic effort. And recently when I was exploring, I saw someone talking about a spider web and how the webs connect, and I thought, that's pretty interesting. But my system was a little more old-fashioned. Mine was built on the Dewey Decimal System. The old way that I used to go to the library and find a 3x5, pull out the shelf alphabetically or numerically, and find the source I was looking for. So I created a little library, a big, huge library, and I have a busy little man who could be a busy little woman. Sorry for being chauvinistic, because I don't intend to be. But a busy little being who files and sorts, and their biggest job is to access. Because what I understand is that I don't have to consciously work on that. It's above my pay grade. What and when I need to know something, I can rest secure that I will know. And this process of knowing is funny because the nature of this YouTube is, it's in my face right now. And sometimes my system, maybe my guy's on lunch break, I don't know, but sometimes the system doesn't work and I can't get. The other time I was trying to think of the buried or cremated, and no matter how hard how pressed I was to come up with cremation, my preferred way of dealing with this physical body, return it to the ethers rather than return it to the worms. Each is fine. Maybe we just have our particular preferences. But it's really funny because I talk about the interregnum, biphasal and bimodal sleeping patterns, where I sleep in two separate sections, first sleep and second sleep. And in between there, lots of times I get what I was fumbling for previously. Most of my revelations, most of my understandings come either during this period or the dream period that seems to proceed and follow the actual awakening when my eyes are open. I don't normally get up. I do reach for my iPad and read whatever I've been reading, whatever is in progress for me. But the interregnum and the periods of dreaming just before and just after is the times of my most productive work. All my titles of my numerous videos came to me this way. So if you have a chance or an interest, take a look at what the titles are, because each reflects whatever was going on with me at the moment. In the moment, moment by moment, with the assurance that all is well and all is whole, suits me perfectly.